Oh hey, I didn't see you there! Welcome back to Dan's Bar. Today we're going to be going deep dive into an old-fashioned. Also, welcome to a new higher viewpoint. Anyway, today we're going to be making an old-fashioned. Now, old-fashions are what started me down the path of having a cocktail of the year, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it was really to give me something to kind of curate over the course of the year, try it a whole bunch of different ways, and see how I could make it my own. If you go to pretty much any restaurant, any bar, anywhere in the country, you're going to find that they have an old-fashioned available. Old-fashions are delicious, they're easy to make, and you can do them pretty quickly if you make them the right way. Now, after doing them for a year and in the many years since then, I have discovered that doing it the easy way is much easier. Shock, I know. So I'm a big fan of making things delicious and quick, easy, cheating on the things that you can do it and still have things be tasty. So my old-fashioned is absolutely cheating because I don't actually use any fresh citrus and there's no muddling involved. So in my old-fashioned, I'm going to use a bourbon. So bourbon's a little bit sweeter than your rye whiskey. Sometimes I may pull it back and do a rye if I want something a little bit drier, a little bit more, more 3 or 4 of them, because if you have too many sweet old-fashions, it kind of gets a little bit cloying after a while. But we're going to have a bourbon to give us that base layer, and really that's the primary ingredient. Everything else on top of that is just flavor that's being added in. For that flavor, we're going to be adding in a pure maple syrup that is grade B instead of the simple syrup or sugar cube that has been muddled with your fruit, because I like that kind of woody, oaky, smoky flavor that you get with that maple syrup instead of having just the pure sugar of the simple syrup or muddled sugar cube. Now, I do like to use a grade B or lower maple syrup because that has a lot more flavor to it. Grade A is good, but it's really clean, which is not good if you wanted to have that flavor adding to your drink. So here I'm using a grade B maple syrup, and it is a precious thing because you have no idea how much maple sap it takes to get this much maple syrup, and so I've learned to very much treat it as a precious resource, but it is delicious all the same. To go along with that maple syrup, we've got 2 different kinds of bitters that we're going to be adding. We're going to be adding an old-fashioned bitter, which is a kind of a cinnamony, basic bitter. I prefer it over Angostura just because it adds that additional layer of flavor on top of the base bitterness to it. We're also going to be adding in a smoke and salt bitter, which is going to give us a little bit of contrast to that sweetness of the bourbon and the maple syrup. That salty sweetness is going to complement the maple syrup nicely with the woody and oaky flavors, while also adding in that salt to give us some more balance. You always want to have balance, whether it's food or beverage. You want the sweet, smoky, salty, spicy, sour. Everything needs to be in balance so that everything works well together, and that's going to help it go in that direction. Now, because I don't usually have fresh fruit on hand, and if I do, I'm either going to eat it or it's 4 weeks old because I forgot it sitting in a drawer somewhere, we also have here a orange extract. This is the biggest cheat of the entire drink, and I have done it this way for 3 years, and it makes life so much easier. Make sure you get a alcohol-based orange extract. They usually come in a oil-based extract, which is perfect for baking things, but when you're making an alcohol and water-based cocktail, mixing in an oil-based orange extract means you got this little film with little things floating at the top that you really don't want. So we're going to be doing it with an alcohol-based orange extract, and it's going to be quite tasty, take the place of all the muddling and needing to have fresh citrus on hand, and be delicious all the same. So we're going to start off in our shaker. Now, this is a shaker that I actually got as part of the Maker's Mark Ambassadors that I joined for free when I was how many years old, don't look at the date on the card, and they just give you stuff, and this has become my daily shaker. It's a good size for a single drink, and so we do have some ice cubes in here, all made with purified water, of course, because obviously bougie, and we're going to go ahead and add our bourbon to that. I'm going to take off all my accoutrements from the various Christmas gifts that they've gotten from Maker's Mark. They're not sponsored by Maker's Mark, although if you wanted to, hey, just let me know. And we're going to go ahead and give a nice hefty pour because this is going to make up the majority of our cocktail. I need to get more. Isn't that just tragic? I do hate it when that happens. I'll have to make a run out during one of my other very necessary food runs, and I'll pick up 2 up at the same time. So we have our makers in our shaker. I'm also going to add in our maple syrup, grade B fresh maple syrup. And this is always going to be added just to taste. So I'm not going to add too much because I don't want this to be too sweet. So just a little glug right there. Waste not, because it's delicious and precious commodities. So we got our maple syrup in there. We're then going to add our Fee Brothers Old Fashioned bitters. They also make a mint bitters. Do not get it, it's freaking terrible. I threw out a bottle a while ago because I just couldn't bring myself to make any more than about 2 cocktails with it. Not good. The Old Fashioned bitters, however, spectacular. Nice and cinnamony, lots of flavor, and we're gonna go ahead and give us a nice shake. And yeah, we're playing with it a little bit, but that's just all right because it's gonna add flavor. And I'm not Guy Fieri, but this is Flavatown right here. We're gonna go ahead and add in our smoke and salt. By the way, whoever decided to name this bitter Pooter, it's actually called Pooter. It's not gonna focus on it, but it's actually called Pooter. That's a terrible name for bitters, so don't do that. If you ever make a bitter, Pooter. So we're gonna go ahead and add some Pooter to our drink because that's something that I say on a regular basis. It's gonna give us a nice smoky, salty flavor to it that's gonna counteract all the sweetness that we have from other locations. And then we're also gonna add in some of our orange extract. Pro tip, if you ever have some bitters that are empty bottles, keep the bottle, use the dropper, and this makes it a lot easier to add just the right amount of other things you'll be adding to your drink that would otherwise be stored in a much larger bottle that makes it harder to pour small amounts, as we learned yesterday when we did the Sazerac with the absinthe. So we've got those core things to the drink. The last thing that I'm gonna add before we shake it up is gonna be some juice from the cherries. Now, because I didn't muddle the orange, we have the orange extract. Because we didn't muddle the cherries, we're just gonna take another dropper and add some of this cherry juice from this same cherry, the cinnamon and hot cayenne? Cinnamon and chili cherries that we added previously. And it's just gonna give us that nice cherry flavor without having to have the muddled fruit in the bottom. And it's gonna add just a nice little layer of complexity on top of what we already have as a delicious cocktail. So now we are gonna do the little shake, shake, shake dance with our little container, because this one I'm less worried about having some ice chunks in it. A little bit of dilution is not a problem at all in this one, because an old fashioned can often be one where you're gonna have maybe 2 or 3 in a night. So a little bit of water as you're drinking that, it's a good thing to do. It's gonna be a good life choice. So as you're shaking it up, get it nice and cold, make sure your hand starts to freeze off. You wanna make sure you have blue fingers all the way around. That's how you know it's just the right level of coldness. Or if you just stop moving for a while and your hands get cold normally, also just the same thing. But very useful, and once it's nice and shaken, we've got our crystal clear ice cube in there, made with the same device as yesterday. Nice transparent cube and a nice big glass to make sure that we can get plenty of breathing room for the cocktail on top, because this one you want to make sure you get a lot of nice nose coming out of it. Now it is going to pour a little bit cloudy because of those ice chips that we have from the shaking process, but it's going to be a really nice flavor and going to fill that up just delightfully. So there we have our old fashioned, and just because we have to make it fancy and decorated in all the ways that we need to, we're gonna go ahead and add a couple cherries on there as well. You could just call it the cherry on top. Yeah, that's not a good joke. Just go with it. Just go with it. You know, pretend it's good. All right, so we have our cherries that we're gonna go ahead and add in there as well, and that is going to be our delightful little old fashioned. So I heartily encourage you to make whatever modifications that you find works for your particular palate. What you have in the house, do it, make it work with whatever you got. But until that time, I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy my old fashioned. See, it just works. It's comforting, it just works, yeah. Have a wonderful whatever day this happens to be, because time has lost all meaning, but enjoy it, and until we meet again, cheers. Take care.